الزمان الثالثة بأعلى أصواتكم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight we continue our journey through Karbala and its various incidents. And as we did in the previous 6 or 7 nights, we try to derive some lessons, as much as we can obviously, from that event and its surroundings. Before I start the lecture today, I'd like to note something very important. And to be honest, that would be as a reminder rather than a new lesson. Everything in life can be viewed differently. So every incident that happens to us, everyone's perception of that incident can differ. And that variety of perceptions and variety of understandings of that incident or that statement is dictated with two major influences. One, the experience that we have in our lives, and secondly, the knowledge that we acquired. So the culture, the family, the schooling, the friends, all have influence on how we form our own personalities, and later on how we perceive the world, and then how to react to it, and inshallah in the future how to lead our own families to live within the reality of the world. What helps that experience to form in the right direction is knowledge. And knowledge is a key word. It can mean many things. It can be the knowledge that we acquire from society and, let's say, the professional experience that we gain, which is different to our own personal experience, as well as the education we get from schools and to then universities and further on in our lives. So these two concepts of experience that we have gained through living in this world, as well as the education we have acquired from this world, make or break our stand in this world. Now with that introduction, let's indulge into Abbas ibn Ali and his life. Abbas was born in the 26th year after Hijrah. So in the day of Ashura, and when the event of Karbala happened, he would have been around 33 to 35 years old. Let's say 34. A 34 years old man, at the prime of his life, how did he differ to everyone else? Okay, let's talk about the experience and then we talk about knowledge, because we said these two go hand in hand to form a person's perception of the world, which would dictate their stance. And please, as we talk about Abbas, I would like you and myself to try to reflect on that. So try to connect that to ourselves and try to see how can we make ourselves better through those experiences. As well as I'll reflect back on it. I'll try as my best in my short talk. Abbas was born as any other human is born. Now facing the real world, he had a few advantages. The first advantage, that his father was Ali. And obviously that advantage by itself, we would perceive that's enough to make him Abbas. No, that wasn't enough. His brothers are Hassan and Hussein. His sister is Zainab. The household that you can't have it more perfect than that. But his mother was an ordinary woman. She wasn't a follower. She wasn't an imam. She was Fatima al-Kilabiyya, a lady from Bani Kilab, which is an Arab tribe. Yes, very well known, but nothing more than that. A lady like any other ladies, a woman like any other woman. So her son would be a man like any other man. Obviously with the advantage of being born in Imam's household. The primary role of bringing up Abbas as well as his other three siblings from the same mother and father, Abdullah, Ja'far and Uthman, the responsibility of their upbringing lies with their mothers, with their mother. Why? Imam Ali alayhi salam was the Imam of the people. He was the successor of the Prophet. The responsibility of the ever expanding Islamic nation was upon his shoulders. Delivering God's message to the people was upon his shoulders. So the many responsibilities of the Imam required the mother of Abbas, as well as the big family that Imam had, required the mother of Abbas to be the prime upbringing person for him. So she's the prime carer, and she is the one who would lead him to be who he was. So number one, the choice, he didn't have a choice, but his father did. The choice that Imam Ali applied in choosing such a good woman to be his wife. That's one. Secondly, Abbas from early on knew who to take as his role model. Alright, we know the advantage of actually being close to the Imam, that if you're proximal to something good, obviously you're going to be good by association, which is a point. Who are your associates? Who are the friends that influence us to be who we are? That's a third factor in his life. And so on. But living everyday life in the proximity to the Imams, being Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Zainab and so on, not only taught him through experience by seeing what the Imam does, but made him live the experiences of the Imam. So for example, when Imam was going to battle, he could see what Ali was standing for. And that is very important for us to see. For example, on the day where Imam Salamullahi alayhi was fighting an enemy at the beginning of his Khilafah in the event of Jamal, a man came. I'm giving this example, then moving on to the next one, inshallah. A man came. He saw two armies lined up in front of each other. Both, by the way, it was the first, why am I using this as an example? It was the first war between two Muslim factions. The first war, public display of enmity and war, act of violence between two Islamic factions. That was a dividing point. A man came. He saw on one hand, you have an army that had a flag La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. The other side had also a flag saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. One army had the companions of the Prophet. The other army has companions of the Prophet. One army has the family of the Prophet. The other army has the family of the Prophet. One army has the wives of the Prophet. The other army has the wives of the Prophet. Then what are they fighting for? You as a Muslim coming forward would ask yourself, who am I joining? To stay neutral is not the solution. One of them has to be wrong, one of them has to be right. Because both of them claim to be the rightful successors of the Prophet. It's a question of principle. It's not a question of a historical event. So the man goes closer to the other army, not Imam Ali's army, and he asks the commanders of this army, and I'm not mentioning names so that I don't try to insult anyone, but I just want to use it as an example. So he comes to the commanders of that army and asks, who is on the right path? Simple question. Who should I fight with? You or them? They go, of course. We have done this, we have acquired this, God has said this, God has said that, look at who he is, and so on. And I'm being vague because the sensitivity of the topic. So I goes, alright, that's convincing enough. But as a rational man, I have to hear the other side too. I can't really judge of that. So he went to the other army. Who was leading the army? Ali ibn Abi Talib. Came to that great man and came close to him and said, Ali, who should I fight with? You or them? Give me a reason. Imam looked at him and said one statement. أعرف الحق تعرف أهله. Know or seek the truth, you would know its people. Knowledge. Experience is not enough, it's not guided by knowledge. Know the truth. It's not only about me seeing these people being great. No, it's about me acquiring the knowledge to know if these people are actually being great or otherwise. Because I cannot judge others based on my own person. Because who said my perception of the world is correct one? And that's why I give introductions of different perceptions and everyone perceiving this world differently. So if we believe in a message called Islam, we're supposed to apply that truth to our daily life. If we're atheists on the other hand, no. No. If we did not perceive or if we did not accept and believe in the message of Islam, we didn't have to seek the truth. Because the truth will be relative. Of course, this man said, and now as we are ordered by Islam to respect everyone in this world, because their version of the truth is relative to their own communities. So if some man comes from another sect or from another religion and perceives the world different, we respect that. Why? Because based on their stance and relative to them, that is the correct path. But me as a Muslim, I have to know it for myself. So seeking knowledge and then knowing the truth and understanding it before perceiving the world, and then before taking role models, making sure that those role models apply Islam. And then, and only then, a man can be sure, or a woman can be sure, that he or she is following the right path. Imam Ali alayhi salam, and Abbas was observing, was ruling Kufa and the Muslim world. He was walking in the streets of Kufa. And he sees an old man begging on the street. Imam Ali stops. With frustration, he looks at his companions and says, a beggar in the time of Ali? See to what extent his justice was. And by the way, we're supposed to apply his principles today as well. So we're not talking about history only. He said, a beggar in the time of Ali? How can that happen? Where social justice is supposed to be at its prime. One of them looks at him and says, no, Imam, he's a Christian. He's a Christian. Imam looks at him with anger. And he said, you used him when he was young, and you leave him when he's old? Is that the principle I taught you? Is that what Ali taught us? And I said yesterday, we have to ask ourselves, are we reflective mirrors of Ali and Islam? And by the way, we don't, our love to Ali alayhi salam, not as a person, but because he practiced and was the perfect example of how a Muslim should be. Then he looked at the people who manage the finance, and he said, give him the same salary you give to the Muslim poor. That was the justice of Ali. And he saw it with his own eyes, Abbas. He lived through it. So when you live with such principles, when you live with such influence, of course you will end up to be Abbas. So Abbas won't be strange that how great he is. The opposite of Abbas would be strange. I was giving a lecture earlier in Ankara, and I ended it sooner than it was supposed to end, and I asked the audience to ask any questions they want about Ashura. They asked a few questions, then a kid, who I think possibly was 5 or 6, he put his hand up. I think I might have overlooked him and I was ignoring him because he was so eager to ask this question. So here, go ahead. He asked this simple question. Because if Imam Ali was this great, if Imam Hussein was this great, then why did they kill him? Very simple question. If Imam Hussein was this great, then why did they kill him? Doesn't make sense. And to be honest, that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And those people who killed Imam Hussein killed him because they did not ask themselves that question before committing their crime. What Abbas did ask himself before helping Hussein. Abbas was to the extent that he believed in Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his message and what he stands for, that in the whole journey he was calling him my master, and he never called him my brother, except in his last moments. Why? Because he wanted to display his obedience to his leader. And obedience and truth, that's why knowledge is important. Then the day of Ashura came. How did Imam Hussein reward his great characteristics? He gave him his flag. What's the status of the flag? Okay, gave him his flag. At that time, the closest person to the leader of the army, and by the way, Imam Hussein did not have an army and did not want a fight or a war. He was forced to accept either defend himself and his family or face death with humility. That's what he was. It was a choice between letting Islam and humanity die or stand for your principles. That's why his first command to his followers was, do not start a war. So then he gave him the flag. At that time, whoever holds the flag meant that he is the second in command, the most important person in the whole army after the Imam. So Abbas had leadership qualities. So his obedience to Imam Hussein was not because he lacked the qualities to lead, or because he was a weak person that needed a leader to lead him. Like some people now, no, I can't follow the scholars, I'm too intellectual. Abbas was very intellectual. But when it comes to Islam, yes, in your daily lives, apply your intellect, for sure. But when it comes to religion, how do you know if it's halal or haram? How do you know that you're going to stand in the hell or the heaven? How? Our intellect can't achieve that. Our intellect can tell us how to measure where that person that we are following stands relative to the truth. It can't tell us what the truth is. Otherwise we didn't need prophets and we didn't need anything. So Abbas, on the day of Ashura, was witness to whatever happened on that day. And the companions of Hussein being slaughtered one after the other. And he was standing by the side of his brother. Then he looks at his three younger brothers and says, go ahead and fight. They also fought on that day, and they did the best they could before they were slaughtered as well. And then no men were left, and Abbas and Hussein were the only ones left. And please concentrate on this because I'll come back to this point. No men left in the camp, except, of course, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam was very ill. So apart from him, only Hussein and Abbas. There was no other men. Imam Hussein, we believe in him as an imam. So his intellect should be the highest. Come back to this point, keep it in mind. Imam salamullahi alayh, Abbas begs the imam with crying to give him permission to go to war. Imam doesn't. He answers him like this: أخي إذا ذهبت تفرق جيشي. My brother, if you go ahead, my army will be dismantled. What army are you talking about? It's only Abbas and you. What army are we talking about? My army will be dismantled. What army are we talking about to be dismantled? It's only one man bearing one flag, that's about it. But Hussein saw in Abbas an army. An army. Then he heard the kids crying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Thirst. So he goes to get some water from the Furat, Euphrates River, which was near their camp, and which the army has blocked from them. He goes and he gets near the water, and he gets inside the water after fighting the army to get to the water. And he gets down to get some water to drink. And that's a man of principle. Because these hard moments and these difficult moments in life teaches one, if he is indeed on the right path, one, and secondly, if he is indeed will stand his ground or not. So he wants to drink the water, he throws it away. يا نفس من بعد الحسين هوني من بعده لا كنت أن تكوني. He's talking to himself. He's talking to himself and says, Oh Abbas, after Hussein you have no value. After Hussein you'll be alive or dead, who cares? The son of the prophets, thirst is burning him, and I drink from this water. La wallah, ma hada fi'alu dini. No, I swear by God, this is not the faith I have. And then he fills what he brought with him, the container with water, and he goes back, riding back to the camp. And by the way, when Abbas, the army, and that's why we talked about principles and ethics, and we said 2 days ago that Ahlul Bayt don't assassinate, as we said with Muslim ibn Aqil. Ahlul Bayt don't take someone by surprise. The army knew that they couldn't fight for Abbas, and they knew that the aim of Abbas was going back to the camp and making sure that water reaches the camp of Hussein. He could have fought easily, but he didn't. Why? Because he was waiting for permission of his Imam to fight. His command was one: get water for the kids. I have to deliver it. But the army is surrounding him. But it is the command of Allah, because the command of Imam is the command of Allah. So the principle, he lived it even in that moment where actually fighting was important, the necessity for him, in order for him to make sure that water gets to the camp. No, he does not fight, and he just rides on and presses on to go back to the camp. Let the water reach them, I don't care about the rest. So then they cut his right hand and they cut his left. And after being wounded and hit by a rod, he fell to the ground. The reaction of Imam Hussein is important for us, and I will end with this. Imam, seeing Abbas fell, he held his back and said, Al-an inkasara dhahri. Now my back is broken. Al-an shamita bi aduwi. Now my enemy is mocking me. Now my army is dismantled. So he saw Abbas as his back. He saw Abbas as his pride, and he saw Abbas as his army. So let us all follow the path and the footsteps of Abbas alayhi salam to acquire the knowledge and the experience and the role models to be like him, to stand in the trials, pride. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.